Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Malice in the Mitten. I'm your host, Tracy Preston, along with my bestie, Christine Mulligan. Hey, Christine.
Hey, Trace. Hey, everybody. I can't believe how many of you are listening to us, and I am super appreciative. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I wanted to say that before we got into another one.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's just exciting. Our numbers are growing, and our second biggest country that's listening besides the United States is still Australia.
They like us down under.
They sure do. So exciting.
All right, so what are we getting into today, Trace? What horrible things are you going to tell me about today, Trace?
Okay, well, we are going to talk about something that's extremely sensitive, and it only happened just a few years ago, but I really contemplated doing this story, but I do think it's very important because just like so many things that we talk about, Christine, there's a lot of mental health issues here. There's a lot of failures in systems that have been put in place. So I think it's important we get it out there. So we're going to do it. Now I'm going to put a serious trigger warning on this episode as it involves a school shooting that happened in 2021 here in Michigan. And if this is too difficult or triggering for you, I completely understand. We have had enough of this kind of bullshit in our country, but it's still important that we talk about it and learn what we can. We all need to be able to recognize the signs when we see them, and we all need to do something about it. I want you to know that I am not in any way, shape, or form trying to give this kid any fame of any kind, because I am not. We are going to learn about what happened, then put this waste of space on a shelf and forget about him. What I am doing is trying to learn what went wrong, create awareness, because it takes a community. It takes each one of us to stand up, to fight, and keep pushing our schools to act when they are supposed to, and to get politicians to do the right thing with automatic weapons and gun reform. For many, this will not be something you will want to listen to because of your own personal experience with this, because your innocence was taken by someone who did this in your school, as well as the PTSD you are suffering at the hands of others. My heart and love are with you, each one of you. And I'm so very sorry if you or anyone you know and love have gone through this horrible and senseless tragedy. Maybe one day we will finally get the gun reform that we all are desperately waiting for. So with that being said, I'm going to do a countdown to give anyone time to hop off if they need to. We'll see you back again on another Malice Monday. 3, 2, 1. So let's get into it. This is Season 3, Episode 3, The Oxford High School Shooter. Today we are going to be talking about a 15-year-old boy named Ethan Robert Crumley. Ethan was born on April 28, 2006 in Atlantic Beach, Florida, which is a hop, skip, and a jump from Jacksonville. His parents are James and Jennifer Crumley. They both worked in business development and marketing before relocating their family to Issaquah, Washington, just a few years after Ethan was born. James and Jennifer rented a place to live in Issaquah, and their landlord described them as, quote, the neighbors from hell, and that they were behind in their rent payments. Other neighbors reported the couple often had loud, profanity-soaked arguments, and young Ethan was, quote, usually crying, and subjected to harsh treatment at the hands of his mother. Both James and Jennifer had prior minor criminal records from 1995 through 2005 for DUI, which is driving under intoxication, and check fraud. I also read that Jennifer was drinking alcohol during her pregnancy and that Ethan has fetal alcohol syndrome. And if you look at him, he has some of the very distinctive telltale signs of it. So let's discuss what fetal alcohol syndrome is and what it looks like. Now keep in mind that everything is on a spectrum, meaning from the very minor symptoms to major. From the Mayo Clinic, quote, fetal alcohol syndrome results from alcohol exposure during the mother's pregnancy to the fetus. It can cause the child to have disabilities related to behavior, learning, and thinking, and physical development. Now, here are some of the physical development issues and what you can see, and these are pretty classic. So for facial features, they'll have a small head, small eye openings, a low nasal bridge, which is the mid to upper bridge of the nose. It's kind of like more flattened to the face, a flat mid face, which is kind of under the eyes, and a smooth philtrum, which is the upper lip. So it's kind of missing that like little channel if you put your finger right under the middle of your nose and then down to what we call the Cupid's bow. Most of these children don't have that, and they also have a thin upper lip. Some of the learning and thinking issues are intellectual disabilities and learning disorders, which include trouble with memory, learning new things, focusing and thinking, not understanding the results of choices made, poor judgment skills such as having a hard time thinking through issues, problem solving, reasoning, and making decisions that affect everyday life. Short attention span that affects staying with a task and finishing it. Poor concept of time, which impacts following schedules, knowing what time to leave in order to arrive on time, and understanding how long a task will take. Trouble with organizing and planning or working toward a goal, including trouble understanding and following directions. Some of the social and behavioral issues are challenges in school with attendance, learning, behavior and interaction with others, trouble getting along with others, including struggling with communication and social skills, issues with behavior and with controlling emotions and actions, problems managing life skills such as telling time, self-care, managing money, and staying safe, and being easily influenced by others or taking advantage of, and lastly, quickly changing moods. Ethan had a half-brother named Eli. James is the father of both boys. Eli was born from a previous relationship of James's with a woman who lives in Florida. Now, I'm not sure why Eli was living with James and Jennifer and not his mother, but he was for a bit. In either 2014 or 2015, the family had moved yet again, now from Washington State to Oxford, Michigan, which is in Oakland County. Oxford is approximately 40 miles north of Detroit. While Eli lived with James and Jennifer, he said, quote, "Something just felt off. As far as I knew, Ethan was always good. He was just quiet, kept to himself, and he kept his circle of friends small. He was a clean kid. He didn't smoke or do drugs, nothing. He got good grades and wanted to be an archaeologist." Eli also said his reasoning for moving back to Florida with his mother in March of 2021 mostly had to do with his stepmother, Jennifer. Quote, "Our relationship wasn't as great as it could be, and moving back to Florida was just the best option." Eli also said that Ethan was not suffering from depression or anything else, and that, quote, "He woke up happy, went to school, came home, and played games." There really isn't much information on how much time he spent at the home with his father, stepmother, and Ethan, but Eli did frequently visit his mother in Florida, and when he did, Ethan would be home alone much of the time. Neighbors also knew that Ethan was always left alone. In fact, neighbors reportedly told investigators that when Ethan was young, that he was left home alone often at night. Ethan's only company was his dog and a ferret. Neighbors who lived near them in Oxford said they would often hear James and Jennifer yelling at one another over infidelity and other matters. One former neighbor, Kayla Lemieux, told the Detroit Free Press that shortly after the Crumbleys moved to Oxford, that Jennifer and James often left Ethan home alone and without a phone when they would go and hang out at bars in the downtown Lake Orion area. Quote, "When they were gone, he would come knock on our door. They didn't leave him with a phone." The neighbor became so concerned that she called and filed an anonymous complaint with the state's Child Protective Services Agency. She did not know if any action was taken, but what she did know was that the neglect didn't stop. Quote, "It was really when I finally started to say more, because I was like, even after calling CPS, they were still doing it, and even with me saying something to them, they were like, quote, 'Oh, he's fine.'" A spokesman for the child care agency told the Free Press that they could not confirm Lemieux's claims because all abuse allegations reported to CPS are kept confidential. Lieutenant Tim Willis, the officer in charge of the case, acknowledged that Ethan's parents were uninterested in their child's schoolwork, ignoring suggestions that he needed help at home. His grades plummeted from A's and B's in the 8th grade to C's, D's, and E's during his freshman year at Oxford High School. One of Ethan's teachers did a personal assessment with him, and he said he wished his parents, quote, were home more. Ethan also kept a journal where he logged his complaints about his parents' mismanagement of money. For example, selling the family's couch to buy a TV, and when left on his own for dinner, he would eat a microwaved breakfast burrito. He also wrote about hallucinations kicking up and his dark side taking over, and that he longed for help with his mental problems, but his parents refused to listen. Lieutenant Willis acknowledged all the references, as well as some that noted the social and peer issues he was experiencing. Nathan wrote about having no friends and seldom talking to anyone. Quote, I just want to go back to the good days when I didn't have a worry in the world. I have no life and no future. I haven't had a real laugh in 4 years. Other journal entries described his self-hate being, quote, in a time loop of sadness and feeling like he's, quote, about to explode. In one particularly cryptic journal entry, he wrote, quote, I feel an evil around me. Even the dogs sense it. As early as March 2021, he started sending his mother, quote, disturbing texts about his state of mind, which included claims about demons and ghosts inside the home. He also reportedly videotaped himself torturing animals, making Molotov cocktails, and sketched himself committing a school shooting, which was something he joked about with a friend of his in a text message. At one point, Ethan allegedly kept a baby bird's head in a jar, which he later placed in a school bathroom. His parents never sought therapy for him following any of these incidences or behaviors. At the end of October 2021, Ethan's one and only friend moved away. Then, Ethan's dog died, and this sent him into a deep depression. All these events and the way this family lived led to incredibly tragic and horrible events in the month of November. That involved Ethan as well as his parents, James and Jennifer. So, were there signs that something horrible was going to happen at school? Hell yes, there were.
I don't know if it specifically points to horrible events at school. However, I mean, you just told this story, and there were many signs of something's about to go wrong.
Yep. Near the beginning of November 2021, there was an act of vandalism at Oxford High where a severed deer head was thrown off the roof of the school into its courtyard. School administrators sent a message to all parents letting them know what had happened and that the school was investigating, but found no threat. Oakland County Sheriff Michael Bouchard said his office was unaware of any credible threats prior to the shooting as well. Ethan had been turned in by his teacher when she saw that he was using his phone in school to search for ammunition and reported this to the school officials. He was pulled into the office and Ethan told them that both he and his mother had just been to a shooting range and that, quote, shooting sports are a family hobby. When the school called Jennifer, she didn't answer, so they left a voicemail. And then they sent her an email about the situation, but Jennifer didn't respond to either the call or the email. Jennifer did, however, send a text to her son which read, quote, LOL, I'm not mad at you. You have to learn to not get caught. This was one day before the shooting.
Seriously. All right. I don't know. The thing is that this is apparently a white boy. I mean, you really never said his race, right?
He's white.
Okay. So I'm immediately offended by the fact that if this was a person of color and they were looking up about ammunition while they were at school, that wouldn't have been acceptable, and the mother would have had to come in, and it would have been a big to-do.
Agreed.
Immediately, that's what I thought of. Like, it would have been a way big thing to do. And meanwhile, this kid is obviously mutilating deers and doing it at school for attention because it's the only place that he's obviously paid attention to is at school, seemingly, and from what you've told me so far. And that was it. They just sent a voicemail and an email and never actually spoke to the mother. So they can see what an egregious piece of shit she obviously is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'm annoyed on so many levels right now.
You're going to get wicked annoyed after I tell you the next thing.
Ugh.
Yeah. So, and I do also want to mention before I get to the next thing that I did watch a video online of Ethan at the shooting range. You guys can find it. It's easy. It's all over the place. And the whole time he's shooting, he's smiling. And this kid just looks creepy. And then to see him smiling, plus you know what he did, it just, oh man, it makes your freaking blood boil. Now, keep in mind that Jennifer, his mother, had also taken her son to the shooting range just a few days prior to the shooting at Oxford High as well. Now, there was another meeting with school officials and Ethan the day of the shooting as well, after a teacher found a violent drawing seen on his desk. And this is how it was described. Quote, a drawing of a semi-automatic handgun pointing at the words, "The thoughts won't stop. Help me." And another section of the note was a drawing of a bullet, with the following words above that bullet, "Blood everywhere." Between the drawing of the gun and the bullet is a drawing of a person who appears to have been shot twice and bleeding. Below that figure is a drawing of a laughing emoji. Further down the drawing are the words, "My life is useless," and to the right of that are the words, "The world is dead."
Nothing was done about this.
Yeah, wait, let me tell you the next one. Yep. So the teacher took a photo of the drawing, which was on a math worksheet, and reported Ethan immediately as it was most disturbing. Ethan was taken to the guidance counselor's office where school officials phoned his parents. They requested that they come to the school. While waiting for James and Jennifer to arrive, Ethan seemed as cool as a cucumber. So the counselors didn't feel he was going to hurt anyone. When his parents arrived, they were shown Ethan's drawing. But by this time, he had scribbled all over some of his artwork, trying to hide what he had drawn. Now, why in the hell did they give this back to this kid? Right? They should have confiscated it. What's he doing? Like, that doesn't even make any sense. But also, thankfully, the teacher took a picture of it, so nothing was hidden by his scribbles. Now, does that completely incense you?
Yeah. I mean, I don't understand.
It gets worse. So James and Jennifer were told that they had to get Ethan counseling, and they gave them a deadline, and they had 48 hours to get it done. And if they did not, the school would place a call to CPS. But his parents were not about to pull him out of school and get him in somewhere to be seen, because, damn it, they had to get back to work. They also stayed quiet about the 9mm semi-automatic that they had just purchased for their son. And believe it or not, the school did not immediately suspend Ethan, and he was allowed to go back to class since he didn't have any prior disciplinary problems at school. And I say fail. Zero tolerance, god damn it. One thing that they didn't do was even search this kid's backpack for a weapon. They should have, because they would have found the 9mm.
Yeah, I just feel like, I don't even think this is a race thing at this issue. I feel like it's just a teenage kid issue. When they're threatening in any way, shape, or form, like you said, zero tolerance. Like, I thought that was the process from, I don't really know when, because I feel like this has been an issue forever. But for all the parents that send their children to school, my children made it out, thankfully, and they're all graduated and all doing, their adulthoods. So I don't have this worry anymore. But I remember sending my kids to school and banking on the fact that the schools were aware of problem children. And the fact that you're telling me the story that the school is clearly aware that there is a major issue, that they're not a little bit more like white on rice on this kid. Like, they should be all over his business. I mean, I remember back when I was a kid in high school, if somebody said anything threatening or did anything threatening, their locker got searched, their backpacks got searched, their parents got brought in. Like, it was always a big to-do. And when I was in school, I wasn't aware of school shootings at all. I wasn't aware of that danger. But just fist fights back when I was a kid would deem another child to get completely deprivatized, meaning all of their stuff was out in the open. They started not being allowed to bring backpacks to school. Back in my day, it was because of switchblades, because bad kids would bring switchblades to school. Granted, I grew up in New York, a little bit citified. It's a little bit different, but that was a thing when I was a kid. And I remember that kids that would be threatening or even had a hint or a whiff or a rumor of having a switchblade on them at any time, even if it was out of school hours and off of school property, that those kids were not allowed to bring backpacks.
Right.
So, what happened to all that?
Right. And because this kid didn't have any history of issues at school, but it's like, what are you so afraid of? The parents are going to get pissed at you. In this day and age, someone's looking up ammunition, someone's drawing, threatening pictures of people being shot and bleeding. I'm sorry, zero tolerance. You are suspended by right now, immediately.
Absolutely. I agree with that. If you're going to say stupid shit and you're going to draw stupid shit in a way that's inappropriate and uncomfortable for people around you, then you're not allowed to be around other people. Is that not the process? Is that not our working framework?
Right, because it absolutely should be. I mean,
I thought it was. That's why I think I'm kind of, I am triggered by this. Think of all the parents that are out there thinking that they're sending their kids, their good kids, their well-behaved kids to a school because we have to, technically, like it's the law, truancy laws and all that. So to some degree, as humans, we are forced to send our children to school. Okay, yes, there's homeschooling and there's all that. And I'm not getting into the nitty-gritty logistics of it. I'm just saying the average person that sends their children to school on the school bus, drops them off, whichever, there's got to be some level of the handoff of responsibility. Like, okay, as a parent, I am giving you my breath so you can make sure that it keeps breathing until it goes back to me.
right.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I can't, I'm not even making sense right now because I'm blown away at the lack of responsibility from the school right now.
Yeah, me too. It's just really it's bonkers. It's just fucking bonkers.
And then at the same time, like, it's not the school's job to raise children, and I get that. But it definitely should be the school's job to cordon off the ones that are not assimilating.
Yeah, protect the children in your building.
Yes. I don't know. I'm probably not making sense of this, but you're triggering me right now. So, and I haven't even had a personal experience with it. And this is just from, the average Joe mom that hears all these horrible things on the news. And, my kids were in school when the Parkland thing happened, and the Parkland thing was not too far from where I was sending my kids to school. And the Parkland neighborhood was, a comparable neighborhood to mine, middle class, everybody's living life. Nobody's uber fancy, but nobody's, on the balls of their ass. You know what I'm saying? So very middle of the road, very Joe Schmo, Mm-hmm. And the fact that happened there at the time when my kids were going to school, I remember being like, oh my God, it could have been my kid. And all of the hemming and hawing that happens aftermath, when any of this kind of stuff happens, and the fact that we have so many of these incidents to point out, I really don't want to talk incessantly about any of them. And it's a sin, and it's a shame. Collectively as a society, these are the reasons why we need to talk about this, because everybody needs to become a little bit more aware, and everybody needs to do their part. And I feel like this is a blatant, from the word go, this story, I feel like you're triggering on every dropped ball. It's like all along the way.
Yeah, huge fumble. I mean, what more needs to be done, right? So let's think about it. The teachers are doing their part in reporting it. So why is the principal and the school officials not doing their part and sending this kid home and suspending him immediately?
Well, or immediately calling Child Protective Services and have them immediately start to investigate.
Yeah.
Baker Act this kid, for Christ's sake.
Like, there should be, again, zero tolerance. What's wrong with having metal detectors at school?
I don't know, nothing, because I went to school in the late 80s and early 90s, and I believe that there were a lot of schools around me that had metal detectors.
Yeah, put them through a thing just like at the airport. Boop, backpacks, everything, yep. And they're going to get scanned and you're walking through. That's really what needs to happen, because this bullshit just isn't stopping.
Well, unfortunately, you want to know the real reason why we probably don't have them in schools? Because it's money. Because that would mean that we'd have to pay more people to stand there and look at all of the lighters and probably the bowls and the vapes. They would all beep, because there's hundreds of kids in any given school, high school, unless you're in a very small area. There's hundreds and hundreds of kids that walk through the doors of the school. That would mean that we'd have to have people working those, and it's all about money. They don't even pay teachers enough. You think they got money for people that stand by the door to babysit metal detectors. That's the real reason. It's money. It takes a village to raise these kids, and it takes a village to pay attention to when we have egregious parents that are failing miserably.
Yeah, well, what costs more, children's lives or the cost of a metal detector?
And that argument can go round robin because it's literally, how do you get blood from a stone? But essentially, the only answer is for more conversation, more awareness, more education, and more involvement of every single human being, more involvement in other people's business without judging other people's business, just providing assistance, care for one another. Because if you're caring for yourself, you need to care for everyone around you, because if everyone around you is not being cared for, then guess what? You're in some peril yourself. And this is a prime example of that.
Yep. What the school officials didn't think would happen absolutely did. On Tuesday, November 30th, Ethan started shooting at 12:15 p.m. The police and media were notified of the situation from multiple kids at the school calling 911, and they would have to whisper, "Oxford High shooter," so they couldn't be heard by Ethan. At 1:22 p.m., Jennifer sent her son a text that read, quote, "Ethan, don't do it." Now I want to take a moment here. Had Ethan talked to his mom about what he wanted to do? Why on earth would she send a text like that? At 1:37 p.m., James, the father of Ethan, called 911 to report that his Sig Sauer SP 2022 handgun was missing and that his son Ethan, quote, could be the gunman at Oxford High. So here's what happened. Surveillance footage showed Ethan Robert Crumbly entering a bathroom and exiting it about a minute later. He was holding a semi-automatic handgun. Then he began to methodically and deliberately walk the halls and aimed his gun at students while firing. Ethan continued to walk down the halls with a methodical pace, firing down the halls and into classrooms. Now, due to the quick response by students and staff, Crumbly was unable to actually enter any of the classrooms, and that's amazing. And you can chalk that up to active shooter drills. So, I mean, it's sad that we have them, but because of all the nonsense in this country, we have to. According to students, a voice over the intercom alerted them to an active shooter, and their teachers started locking and barricading doors and covering the windows. This was not a drill. Others recounted hearing loud banging sounds before they realized the noises were gunshots and quickly locked the classroom doors. One student who hid in a toilet stall recalled hearing a gun being cocked outside of the bathroom. Once the school had been secured, he opened the bathroom door to find several bodies lying on the floor. At 12:51 p.m., police received the first of approximately 100 911 calls about the shooting and headed to the school. Within minutes, first responders and Oakland County sheriffs had arrived at the school. Ethan did not try to have a standoff with the police. He put his weapon down and was quickly arrested unharmed. Ethan still had 7 rounds of ammunition loaded into his gun, as well as 2 15-round magazines. It is estimated that at least 30 shots were fired. At a news conference, Oakland County Undersheriff Michael McCabe said Ethan surrendered to deputies without incident. The entire shooting lasted about 5 minutes and occurred in the southern end of the school building. Immediately afterwards, the school went into lockdown. Some students were evacuated to a nearby Meijer store. And we've talked about Meijer before. It's a Michigan-based store, kind of like a big store like Target, where they have food, clothes, you name it, you can buy it. It's a huge store. So that was pretty much kind of nearby or like across the street. So they evacuated everybody there, all the kids that were getting out of school, parents that were arriving, and they were instructed to go in there and wait inside until they had heard from authorities regarding the status of their children. Once Ethan was in custody, police searched the school for victims and evidence. At least one student posted a video to social media showing people hiding in a classroom while someone out in the hallway spoke to them, claiming to be law enforcement. Those locked down in the classroom mistakenly believed the speaker was the shooter. They ultimately fled through the windows, and from there, deputies led them to safety. One student said, quote, "We grabbed calculators. We grabbed scissors just in case the shooter got in and we had to attack them. The shooter was so close that a bullet pierced one of the desks he and another student used to block the door." During a subsequent press conference, Sheriff Bouchard confirmed that, based on surveillance footage, Crumbly had never knocked on that door, and the person speaking from the hall was likely a detective trying to calm the students. Oxford High School used the active shooter drill known as ALICE: alert, lock down, inform, counter, and evacuate, which uses proactive strategies to evade a gunman, such as using noise as a distraction and creating distance. The teachers were also trained to use a barrier at the base of the door called nightlock, which was installed on every door of the school in 2017, 3 years before such barriers were required by Michigan law. Well, that's one good thing. There were rumors about threats of a mass shooting at the school before it occurred, and because of the rumors, some students stayed home on the day of the shooting. Now, I wonder if these rumors were communicated to the parents. Did the school officials hear of this? I have no idea.
Yeah, that always interests me how rumors like that occur. They do hear things like that. And I think it actually kind of starts to come from just other kids catching vibes.
Right, but the thing is that at this stage in the game, kids should know to say something to someone like, hey, here's the word on the street. Start alerting the adults in the institution where you're going to school. Well, 4 students lost their lives because of Ethan. Several others, including teachers, were wounded, and countless families were wondering if their child was one of them. The 4 that were killed that day were Hannah St. Juliana. She was 14 years old. Tate Meyer, he was 16 years old. Madison Baldwin, she was 17 years old. And Justin Schilling, also 17 years old. In response to the shooting, President Joe Biden and U.S. Representative Elissa Slotkin, whose district includes Oxford High School, expressed their condolences over the shooting. Governor Gretchen Whitmer said in a statement that she was devastated for the students, staff, and families of the school, calling gun violence a public health crisis. Whitmer also ordered all flags in Michigan to fly half-staff. Democratic politicians in the Michigan legislature vowed to pursue new gun control legislation and revive stalled bills relating to gun control. All 4 professional Detroit sports teams, the Lions, the Pistons, the Tigers, and the Red Wings, expressed their condolences to the community as well. Now, while I was doing some research, I had listened to a few victim impact statements made during Ethan's trial. One in particular statement was made by Kylie Osage and one by Riley Franz. I want to share these statements with you, as hearing what they had to say and what they went through is something we should hear, something that should make an impact finally to get more protections for our children, for our communities. What I'm going to read to you next is Kylie Osage's impact statement. Quote, I was looking at pictures of me and my parents in 2009. It was the end of my first day of kindergarten. I was so innocent with my Barbie backpack and my little pony lunchbox. At the time, I didn't know what a school shooting was. No child should at that age, let alone experience one. I was so innocent on that first day of kindergarten, but my innocence was taken from me 2 years ago. I was a senior at Oxford High School on November 30th, 2021. That day began like any other for me. I drove to Oxford Middle School in the morning. Me and my friends were partners for Bully Busters, which was a bullying prevention program. Tate and I spoke to 6th graders about bullying in the school environment and how to prevent it. Afterwards, I drove back to the high school where I took a math test. I ate lunch at the same table I sat every single day. I was talking with my friends in the hallway before my 5th hour class. Me and my dear friend Riley Franz and I were standing in the hallway socializing with our peers when all of a sudden I thought I heard a balloon pop. I turned and I fell right to the ground. I remember hearing screams, but I couldn't run. I was already down. I remember hearing Mr. Wolf make an announcement. I'd never heard the halls become silent so fast in my life. The silence was deafening. I was laying on my side like this, and I realized what had just happened. I was just shot, and I thought I was going to die as I laid on the floor. I attempted to get up, but my legs weren't moving. I repeatedly hit my legs with my hands like this in an attempt to regain any feeling, but not a single thing. I then somehow tried to do a push-up to somehow drag my body to a safe place where I could get some help. But with the weight of my Carhartt jacket and my backpack full of laptops and textbooks, I was unable to do so. It was so painful. I let myself drop back down onto the floor where I felt warmth on my face from blood soaking into the carpet. I remembered hearing a squish sound against my right ear, and it was the sound of carpet mixed with blood going into my ear. I started yelling for help, but when I say yelling, it was loud enough for someone around me to hear, yet quiet enough for the shooter not to hear me. No one ever came, but I did hear something. I reached my hand over my head, and I realized it was Hannah. I could hear her groaning beside me. Realizing that I wasn't alone, I kept trying to reassure her that someone will come help us. Don't worry. Just keep breathing. Just please stay with me. I said that to her 1,000 times. At one point, a SWAT team member came running past us. He was the first person I'd seen. I pointed to him. Please help us. He did a double take and said, someone will come back for you. Hannah and I were left in utter loneliness. I thought I was dying. I kept repeating my mom's phone number to make sure my brain was functioning. I was creating math problems in my head and solving them to make sure I wasn't dying. I continued to yell for help. 15 minutes of laying there, absolutely helpless. 15 minutes of laying in a pool of my own blood. 15 minutes of hearing Hannah St. Juliana's last sounds while stroking her hair and trying to encourage her. When help finally came, they attended to Hannah, attempting to wrap a tourniquet around her. Someone eventually came for me too. I didn't know who it was, but I knew it was a man, and I later learned that the man was Mr. Ken Weaver. Mr. Weaver stayed with me, supporting my head and locating my wounds. He kept pressure on my entrance wound to stop the bleeding. Mr. Weaver fought to keep me awake and alive until the paramedic could attend to me. During the ambulance ride, I kept asking my paramedic, will I still be able to ride my horses? Will I ever be able to play basketball again? I kept asking these questions to the paramedic in the ambulance. These are my favorite activities while growing up. I was transported to St. Joseph's Hospital in Pontiac, where I stayed until January. During my hospital stay, I spent 1 week in the intensive care unit and over a month in the rehabilitation unit. The bullet entered me through my right clavicle and extended out the left side of my back. The bullet shattered my right clavicle, broke 2 of my ribs, and grazed my spine, causing a spinal cord injury. That night, I had an emergency surgery to remove a hematoma from my spinal cord and to take out the shards of bone from around my spine, along with pieces of clothing that had entered along with the bullet. 1 week later, I had a clavicle repair surgery where they stabilized my right clavicle. I now have a titanium plate. During my almost 5-week stay in the rehab unit, I had to train myself to sit up unassisted. I had to relearn how to perform basic life tasks like eating, brushing my teeth, showering, and getting dressed. I had to learn to walk again, as well as climb stairs. Prior to this event, I was being recruited to ride horses competitively on a college equestrian team. Unfortunately, I could not follow through with this opportunity. I've been riding horses my entire life. I've had several horses throughout my lifetime. They have provided me with years of happiness. Being able to swing a leg over my horse is my therapy. It's pure joy, and I have not been able to do this in 2 years. Before November 30th, I also had a great job working at a golf and country club. I love my job and I love the people there, but unfortunately, I am unable to return to work and have not had a job since due to my disabled condition. I have not been able to earn any money for myself. 7 months after being discharged, I became a freshman at Michigan State University, where I am continuing my education and carrying on with my life because no one is ever going to stop me from living my life to the fullest. Michigan State has provided me with several accommodations as I am still disabled and in extreme pain every day. They were able to place me in a dorm that is close to all my classes. They provide transportation for me since walking long distances is a battle. It was a 1-minute walk to the closest cafeteria, and without these accommodations, I would have not been able to complete my freshman year at Michigan State. This past summer, I underwent another spine surgery where the surgeons fused my C6 to T7 vertebrae to stabilize my spine and correct a progressing deformity resulting from my injury. I was blessed to have found some excellent surgeons in New York City. My family and I spent 2 weeks recovering in New York, And Your Honor, to make everyone aware, back surgery is so hard. It causes intense pains and struggles. It's impossible to do anything yourself. I needed help just to roll over, sit up, stand up from a chair, get in and out of bed, and even sip a glass of water. My 2 spine surgeries took the life out of me. Besides relearning daily life tasks, I had to stop playing tennis, riding horses, driving, and a whole list of other things that people can take for granted. Hanging out with my friends is hard. The best I can do is sit down the whole time. I've been on a list of medications for the past 2 years, and I am so tired of relying on medications to keep me out of my misery. I also have a thermoregulation disorder resulting from my spinal cord injury. With this condition, I am unable to stay warm in cold weather or keep my body cool during warm temperatures. This is a difficult condition to cope with, as I must keep the weather into consideration when making any plans or just choosing to stay indoors. Currently, I'm a sophomore at Michigan State University, where all these accommodations are still in place. Even though I am able to attend school, I am still in constant pain every single day. When I get out of bed, the physical pain hits me hard. For reference, Your Honor, it has been 738 days of constant physical and mental pain. It has been 738 days without playing basketball or tennis. It has been 738 days of not being able to ride my horse. It has been 738 days of reliving the tragedy in my mind every single hour. It has been 738 days of living with PTSD, scared of the thought of someone hurting me again. It has been 738 days of living with survivor's guilt, knowing that I could not save Hannah St. Juliana. 738 days and counting for the rest of my life. I live with these struggles. Still to this day, I am in physical therapy twice a week for an hour. I attend therapy where my therapist helped me to ease my ongoing pain. We are also working on regaining all the strength back that I have lost. I'll never be able to ice skate again. I will never be able to ride a roller coaster or jump on a trampoline ever again. I will never be able to participate in intramural sports teams at my school. I will never be able to attend sports in the student section at school because my pain is unbearable during events like this. My life has changed its path entirely. However, Your Honor, I refuse to let the cowardly acts of a person affect the rest of my life. I will continue and live on for those that we've lost. I will continue to walk around MSU's campus strong and proud. I will continue to have compassion and spread love and joy and positivity everywhere. I will continue to advocate for those that have experienced something similar. I will proceed to stand up against gun violence and hope that nothing like November 30th ever happens to anyone ever again, and nothing will ever stop me from living my life to the absolute fullest. No one will ever take my happiness away from me because I am the strongest person I know. Your Honor, I've experienced many blessings and met many angels along this journey. I have come to know the love, compassion, and support of a community. I have so much to be thankful for. I am grateful that I've had the opportunity to stand here before you and tell you my story. I am so blessed with my family. They've walked with me every single step of the way. Their strength is astounding during both of my hospital stays. I've met so many amazing individuals who have become some of my best friends and family. They've supported me through every single endeavor. They took care of me and poured their hearts into my recovery. I'm beyond grateful for my hospital and healthcare family that have cared for me. I'm so fortunate to have some great friends who make changes to their lifestyles just to accommodate mine. Most of all, Your Honor, I am thankful that I'm still here. I keep my faith and trust in a greater plan as long as I'm on this earth. I will fight for justice for everyone in this country that has experienced something similar. Please do not let anyone else suffer the impact and trials of our tragedy that we hear about today. Please let there be no opportunity for more tragedy and pain because no one deserves this. Thank you for your time, and I hope my presence here today will help you make the right decision. The next impact statement that I will read is from Riley Franz. Quote, I've contemplated how to put November 30th, 2021 into words. How to verbally acknowledge that day's impact, terror, sorrow, and tragedy. how to make a victim's impact statement quite literally. I would love nothing more than to stand up here and say that I have overcome the obstacles of that day and that I have continued to live my everyday life. But that would be a lie. November 30th has altered my life in every single aspect, and it's changed and molded the way I think, the way I feel, and the way I act. I can no longer sleep without having flashbacks of a bullet entering one side of my neck and exiting the other. I feel limited at what I can do at 19 years old because of the thoughts running through my head. My entire existence has been consumed by fear that I will once again have to experience the pain and the suffering I felt on November 30th. I used to love attending school where I would learn and create connections with others, and now I experience panic attacks nearly every day. When I have to attend university, I can no longer sit in a classroom and focus and take notes like many students around me. Now when I sit at a school, I feel anxious, checking for all my exits, highly in tune with all movements inside and outside the classroom, flinching at every single sound from walking upstairs to a pencil dropping and counting down the minutes until I feel that I can breathe again. I cannot remember what it's like to feel safe and secure in any space that I occupy. I often cancel plans because I fear leaving the comfort of my home and my family. On the days that I can't get out of bed because I'm afraid, when I'm sitting in a restaurant or a classroom, or even walking to my car, the unimaginable will happen. When a balloon pops, a car backfires, or people run past me, my thoughts are consumed with fear. My body is constantly in survival mode. I long for the life I once had, which my selfless parents worked so hard to create for my sister and me, free of hardship, pain, and worry. A life filled with opportunities and fearlessness. I feel the structure my parents created was burned to the ground that day. Everything I had, the privilege of not feeling or fearing, is gone. I'm mourning the childish wonder and carelessness stripped from my little sister, the most fantastic person I've ever had the privilege of sharing life with. I mourn the person I used to be because although I survived, the original pieces of me didn't. I will never have the opportunity to experience life like I used to, with so much joy and clarity. The scariest part of November 30th for me was not that day itself, but the days that followed it. On the days that I feel like I'm not occupying my body but watching it from above, I feel like I cannot breathe because I'm paralyzed in a world no one who hasn't experienced something like this could ever imagine. A piece of me shattered that day, and 2 years later, I'm still struggling to put them back into place. But every day I choose not to allow what a selfish individual decided to do to break me. I, Riley Franz, am a survivor of gun violence. I, Riley Franz, am a survivor of a terrible epidemic caused by a broken system. But I refuse to be known as a victim at the hands of an individual with no regard for others. His selfishness will not consume my identity. I am so much more than a victim. I am a daughter to the most amazing parents, Jeff and Brandy. I am a sister to the most remarkable young women I have ever met, Isabella. I am a friend, a classmate, a cousin, and a granddaughter. But most importantly, I'm human. I'm a person who deserved a chance to make it to her 5th class that day. I am a person who deserved to not run in fear while she bled out. I am someone who deserves not to have to answer a phone call from her little sister asking if I was safe. I deserve to be a student who made it to her class, not someone's target practice. I would never wish what I experienced upon anyone in this world, what my family experienced that day, but I continue to battle every day. No child should have to fear that their school will be next, that they need to know what to do if the worst breaks out in front of them. Children should be able to attend school, focus on their studies, friends, aspirations, and dreams. No parent should have to worry that their child is unsafe at a place where they are supposed to learn and prosper. Students should no longer have to learn lockdown drills. Instead, we should work harder to create a system that prevents gun violence and prevents children's lives from being stripped away and leaving only pieces behind. And that is the end of her statement. It's quite powerful.
Oh my God. I was a pissy-eyed mess the whole time you were reading them because you read them right after you read the names of the children that were murdered. I've been over here sniffling and crying like a little baby this whole time. And that's horrible. But they were very well thought out statements from both of them.
They were quite lovely, and that was very, very difficult to read. Very difficult to get through it without also falling to pieces, but how well said. And I hope our politicians and our communities are listening. And that's why I wanted it to be read, because they were just so poignant.
I ran out of tissues now. I wasn't prepared. I wasn't prepared. That was rough.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. So, with a deep breath, we're going to move forward. We're going to talk about the investigation. There was video footage from security cameras within the school, and this was a primary focus of the investigation. Crumbly had clear intent to kill other students. He fired through barricaded doors and aimed for the heads and chests of victims at close range. A search warrant was also executed at Crumbly's home, where a cell phone, a journal, several long guns, and other items were seized as part of the investigation, along with Ethan's prior social media post. The cell phone contained 2 videos, both recorded the night before the attack. Ethan talked about his plans to shoot and kill the students at the school the following day. The journal also detailed, quote, his desire to shoot up the school. Hopefully my shooting will cause Biden to get impeached. What in the actual fuck is that statement for? That's so left field. A couple of Ethan's journal's pages were found on Reddit. He wrote, quote, date, November 9th, 2021 at 2:13 p.m. I have nothing left. I wonder how many people I will kill. I hope my parents can forgive me for what I do. It's either this or a sad life and me becoming a serial killer. I will tell some close friends not to come to school the day of the shooting. On another page, he lists the details of what he is planning. Quote, I'm going to exit the classroom sometime throughout the day. I will get the Molotov ready and the 9mm ready. Then I will walk behind any pretty girl and shoot them in the back of the head. I will then shoot anyone I see aiming for the head. I will then find a full class and throw a Molotov in there. I will continue shooting people until the police breach the building. I will then surrender and plead guilty to a life in prison. On December 1, 2021, Ethan was charged with terrorism causing death, first-degree murder, assault with intent to murder, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, with the possibility of more charges being added as the investigation continued on. Ethan was charged as an adult, and I am all about that.
I do remember in the past, one of our shows, we talked about the death penalty. I don't really remember the context in which we talked about it, but there are certain circumstances where I don't really feel like they should be wasting our efforts in any way, shape, or form staying in jail, that they should just be euthanized. And this is one of those cases where it is clear as day, intent is in full throttle. This kid should have been euthanized. And I know that sounds really harsh and egregious, and, you know, life is precious and all of that, but sometimes there's just bad apples. And I mean, I've said that before on other podcasts of ours, and sometimes evil is evil is evil. And this kid should have been euthanized as far as I'm concerned. A life in prison is too good for him.
Sadly, remember, Michigan is a state that does not have the death penalty. So we will pay for his life.
They should try him down in Texas for sure.
Yep. Get him down to Regina State, damn it.
Right.
On December 6th, prosecutor Karen McDonald said, quote, Oxford High School officials had legal grounds to search Crumley's backpack and locker when concerns were raised about his behavior on the day of the shooting, but they never did so, for reasons which were not made clear, and that charges against school officials were not being ruled out. So how in the heck did this kid even get a weapon in the first place? Well, James, Ethan's father, had purchased it for him at a local gun shop on Black Friday, 4 days prior to the shooting. The weapon he bought with his son right there next to him was a 9mm Sig Sauer SP 2022 semi-automatic handgun. Ethan posted about it on his social media later that day. Jennifer, Ethan's mother, referred to the gun as Ethan's, quote, new Christmas present in her social media post. It was unclear how Ethan gained possession of the gun or how it was brought by him into the school building. In Michigan, minors cannot legally possess guns. However, in the company of an adult, it is okay. An example of that would be when a minor is hunting with an adult. And even at that, they have to take gun safety classes or any kind of gun safety courses. I mean, don't you have to have a gun safety course to have a gun? I have to look that up, but I'm pretty damn sure you do.
You do in order to get a license, but minors can't get licensed for them anyway. So this brings us into our whole little spider web. I do have weapons. My father was a Marine. He taught us all how to shoot. So, like, when people say that, that's their culture and blah, blah, it's not that. I mean, I was a city kid, so it's not like that was our culture. We didn't have them around or anything like that. But I understand that this is the culture of some people, is to be very into guns, just like some people are very into basketball or some people are very into soccer. I get that. I understand that. I respect that. But this is where it gets tricky, is people are a little delusional and haphazard about them, treating them like toys and, Christmas presents instead of weaponry. And it is weaponry. That is what guns are. They are not toys or presents.
Exactly. Michigan is a state where there's a lot of hunting, and I'm all for it. I get it. I understand it. But I just don't think that this is a hunting kind of a family. And no way in hell, like you said, should a 15-year-old boy be given a semi-automatic handgun. I mean, that's just completely insane.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me about how they, unfortunately, you're not going to tell me how they fry because it's Michigan and they're not ever going to fry in Michigan. But please tell me that they got their comeuppance, the facsimile thereof.
Okay. Just as he said he would do in his journal entry, Ethan pleaded guilty to all of the charges in October of 2022 and was sentenced in December of 2023 to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 24 years. Ethan was appointed an attorney by the court. Now, you know what? Let me back up. So, yes, he was saying he's guilty. Then they ended up I think the judge put in a plea of not guilty on his behalf, thinking, oh, this kid doesn't know he doesn't understand the gravity of it. But he then pleaded guilty, and they accepted it. Okay. So Ethan was appointed an attorney by the court. His parents, now they hired themselves an attorney, but they did not hire one for their son. Nope. That's a big nope. Par for the course for these two stellar parents. Crumbly's parents, Jennifer and James, were also charged with involuntary manslaughter for failing to secure the handgun used in the shooting. After failing to appear for their arraignment, the parents were subjects of a manhunt by the U.S. Marshals. But they were caught and arrested in Detroit thanks to someone who recognized their car. The Crumbleys were tried and convicted separately on 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter, and they were sentenced on April 9th, 2024, to the maximum allowed, which was 15 years in prison, with a possibility of parole after 10 years. So there you go. They're in prison.
Okay, so now my best hope is that other prisoners don't let them keep breathing.
Right.
That's our small sliver, is that they're idiots enough that they make the wrong kind of enemies in prison. That's the best I can hope for.
Yep, me too. Now, lawsuits were filed against the school district alleging negligence by school officials towards warning signs exhibited by Ethan leading up to the shooting. And I agree with this 100%. This all could have been completely avoided, like we talked about earlier in the show, zero tolerance. According to the Associated Press, this appeared to be the first time in U.S. history where a terrorism charge was filed in relation to a gunfire incident on school grounds. The terrorism charge is provided under the Michigan law for an act that is intended to intimidate or coerce a civilian population. In this case, the Oxford High School community. So now there had been some chitter chatter that, Ethan was going to try to, use the insanity defense. But on October 24th of 22, he did plead guilty, as we talked about, to all charges and withdrew his intent to pursue the insanity defense. He also admitted during questioning on that day that his own money was used to purchase the weapon, claimed that the gun was not locked away on the day of the shooting. So that's nice. Here's money, Mom and Dad. Let's go get me a gun. Now, on September 29th, 2023, Judge Quan Rowe ruled that Ethan, quote, was eligible for a sentence of life without parole. In his ruling, Rowe said that while Ethan's youth and difficulties at home were mitigating factors, they did not outweigh the seriousness of his crime. Rowe also pointed out that Ethan's obsession with violence had persisted during his time in jail, citing an incident where Ethan accessed violent material online using a hacked tablet. As a juvenile, Crumbley was entitled to a hearing under a 2012 United States Supreme Court ruling in Miller v. Alabama to determine whether he would be eligible for parole after serving at least 25 years. A formal sentencing was scheduled for December 8, 2023. Ethan appeared in court with a fresh haircut, and he was void of any emotion as he was led to his seat at the defense table in his orange prison jumpsuit and shackles. Oakland County Prosecutor Karen McDonald pulled no punches in her opening statement. Quote, "The defendant made the decision to take 4 lives. The defendant does not get a pass because his parents were grossly negligent." Paulette Lofton, who was Ethan's court-appointed attorney, sought to counter the prosecution's call for a life sentence. Quote, "We must move away from the trial mentality. We will be asking for a term of years." Lieutenant Timothy Willis took the stand at the hearing for questioning by Oakland County Prosecutor Mark Keast. Willis described what he saw when he arrived on scene, how grisly it was, dealing with the aftermath, and reviewing the disturbing content that Ethan had produced in the lead-up to the shooting. Quote, "Text messages and journal entries that grew more horrific as time went on." The shooter made repeated references to planning the shooting in his journal. Willis also admitted that he had never seen anything like this before in his career. Willis was asked to read the journal entries made by Ethan. Quote, "I want to shoot up the school so fucking badly. Killing myself is too much of a pussy move." Willis said the shooter apparently sought the fame that comes with shooting up a school and fantasized about what life in prison would be like for him. Again, reading from Ethan's journal, quote, "I want all of America to see the darkness in me. In 50 years, we're all fucked. I want to hit as many people as I can. I want to teach them a lesson. I'm going to have so much fun tomorrow." There were also several journal entries regarding his mental health and that his parents were doing nothing to help him. Willis also described video footage of Ethan torturing baby birds. Lofton focused her cross-examination of Willis on the shooter's parents' behavior, including reluctance to get involved in their son's schooling when he displayed learning difficulties. When the elementary school teachers implored Ethan's parents to help him read at home, they blew him off and said it was the school's responsibility. Jennifer and James Crumbley are the first parents of a school shooter to be charged with a crime related to the shooting. They pleaded not guilty and argued that they did not directly harm anyone. Ethan was surprised that his parents didn't reach out when his grades dipped, and his Instagram posts featured pictures of videos of guns. I wonder if he was doing this as a last-ditch effort to get help or interest in him from his parents. During the trial, a forensic expert said Ethan shot his gun a total of 32 times, and that he had calmly reloaded his gun as he wandered the hallways of the school. This all came from reviewing the surveillance video at the school. One chilling photo was of a pool of blood on a bathroom floor where the shooter hit and killed classmate Justin Schilling. Edward Rogrowski, a cell phone forensic specialist for the Oakland County Sheriff's Office, while on the stand, emotionally described his reaction that day. He remembered seeing students running from the school without their jackets. He had even seen one running without shoes. Now, remember, this is the end of November. It's cold, and there's snow on the ground. He described the neighboring Meijer grocery store being used as a designated safe place. Workers told shoppers to leave immediately, then ripped boxes of pens and paper open so police could use them to collect names of the children. He went on to say the stunned students looked like zombies as they milled about the store, and parents frantically looking for their children. Rogrowski went on to say that he was reviewing the surveillance footage from the school and that, quote, he was struck by the body language of the shooter. He had a sense about him, a proud chest. One of the school's teachers, a Molly Darnell, was the last to testify. Quote, she described a rush of students running down the hall in a way she had never seen before. She went out into the hallway and locked eyes with the shooter. She had never seen him before. She had no idea who he was. She said she jumped to the right to get away as she heard 3 loud pops, then felt like hot water had been thrown on her shoulder. She was shot in the arm. It was a through and through, and the tract was just 6 inches away from hitting her heart. He was aiming to kill me. A Miller hearing was required because a 2012 United States Supreme Court ruling that mandatory life sentences without parole for juveniles violated the Eighth Amendment. In 2022, the Michigan Supreme Court made the same ruling. Prosecutors can still push for life sentences without parole, but a hearing must be held where defense lawyers can present evidence and rebut arguments. On December 9th, 2023, just before Ethan's sentence was announced, he apologized to the courtroom and said, quote, "Any sentence that they ask for, I ask that you do impose it on me. I am truly sorry." Then came the sentence. It was announced that Ethan had been sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He was charged with the 1 count of terrorism to bring justice to all the people affected by the mass shooting, considering all the students at Oxford High School and the community as victims of this attack. Quote, "James and Jennifer were held at Oakland County Jail, where their son was also being confined. As a result, all 3 were put in isolation, monitored under suicide watch, and not allowed to interact for an indefinite amount of time. During the bond hearing, the judge sided with the prosecution and would not lower James and Jennifer's $500,000 bond. They were a flight risk, as they had already done so previously. In early 2024, the judge in their cases ruled that Jennifer and James would be granted separate trials, and that the first of which scheduled to begin January 23 of 2024. Jennifer's trial came to a close on February 6, 2024, and James's trial ended on March 14, 2024. They were both found guilty on all 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. On April 9, 2024, both James and Jennifer received the maximum sentence for 15 years in prison, along with the possibility of parole after serving 10 years. Jennifer's house at the Women's Huron Valley Correctional Facility, which is also where Gwendolyn Graham is serving her sentence, and James is at the Bellamy Creek Correctional Facility. Their son Ethan was moved from Oakland County Jail to the Thumb Correctional Facility prison because there is a designated unit there for youthful offenders who are convicted on adult charges. Once Ethan turns 18, he will be moved in with the rest of the adult population. Maybe he'll bump into Christopher Dankovich.
They'll have a little party.
The Michigan Department of Health and Human Services applied help and support to the students and their families to deal with the trauma that they all experienced from the shooting. More than $3.2 million in resources have been approved in response to the shooting since November 30th. Now put the $3.2 goddamn million into the schools to protect the kids.
Yeah, I hear ya, but I kind of say it with a sigh. I mean, I know $3.2 million sounds like a lot, but when you spread it out over all of the schools in Michigan, it's not that much.
Exactly, and I'm going to go back to what we've talked about many, many times before. We need to have mental health in schools starting K all the way through 12, because hopefully somebody would have picked this shit up with this kid and maybe helped him. And I was really debating, like I said, I was really debating on doing this, but it has to be done.
There's no rewind, unfortunately. It's like that old story that people like to say about, words, but it really fits for any bad actions, is the whole nail in the wooden fence. Like if you put nails in a wooden fence and you apologize and you take that nail out, that hole in the wooden fence will always be there. And even if you throw some wood putty in it and you fill up that hole, it's never the same.
So with that heavy story, we're going to sign off. And we're going to wish everyone a wonderful week. Love one another. Be kind to one another. Listen to one another. Watch out for what's going on around you and report it. I hope we don't have another one of these. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for those who stayed with us. That was a tough one, but I'm glad you were here with us. Like Christine says, let's do better. All right, everyone, have a great week, and we will see you on Wednesday for Round Robin.
Bye.
Bye.